Thousands sheltered from shelling in basements in Kharkiv, as Europe correspondent Isabella Higgins reports.
It's been an intense battle to claim the city of Kharkiv that sits in the country's east, very close to the Russian border. Now, some have described this as the first true street fighting that we have seen throughout this four-day. Some people are calling this real urban warfare. We're talking about shots being fired down suburban streets, grenades being thrown down boulevards. People say this city is usually cosmopolitan and vibrant when it's not under siege. It's home to 1.5 million people usually, and throughout all of this, those who have stayed, it's thought that hundreds of them are seeking shelter in a metro station while all of this plays out on the streets above them, and other residents have been bunkering down. But as this day comes to an end, Ukraine's military claims that it is still in control of the city, that it has managed to repel Russian forces. So at the end of this is day 4 of the invasion here in Ukraine, and it's very difficult to tell whether things are escalating or de-escalating because, as we just heard, Russia has made threats about using nuclear weapons in a sense, but at the same time, for the first time throughout this conflict, there is the prospect of peace talks that may come very shortly between Ukraine and Russia, and for the first time they are peace talks that are not conditional. So as we wrap up this day here, it's really hard to know what's to come.
Our correspondent Isabella Higgins there. Les, this morning the invasion of Ukraine has become an international crisis with a much broader reach after Vladimir Putin announced he put Russia's nuclear deterrent on alert. Yes, you heard those words correctly. He has raised the nuclear spectre. Dr. Olga Boychak from the Centre for International Security Studies at the University of Sydney joins us now. Dr. Boychak, good morning. What do you make of this?
Good morning, Michael. This is definitely a cause for concern. Vladimir Putin had gestured towards Russia's nuclear arsenal in his famous televised speech that was recorded on February 21st. So we did see that coming. He did have some hints, and he even directly mentioned nuclear. As we know right now, we're in the 5th night of fighting. The Ukrainian army were able to retake most of the Ukrainian cities that were initially sieged by Russian army. But we also know that the capital city of Kyiv is being surrounded, and which made civilian evacuation impossible at this point. So I guess we are right as we speak. The battle for Kyiv is taking place. A lot of historians are talking about the parallels between this battle and the battle that Kyiv had withstood in 1941. So we are just all holding our breath and seeing how it's going to develop.
I want to turn back to that much more conventional warfare in just a moment, but going back to Vladimir Putin raising the prospect, or in fact putting his military chiefs in charge of Russia's nuclear arsenal on alert, what does that say to you about how he thinks things are going in Ukraine? And I guess more deeply into this dictator's psychology.
It's really hard to tell what is going on with this man's psychology. There are rumors that he's been increasingly isolated over the past 2 years because of COVID concerns. There are rumors that he's suffering from ill health and that he hasn't been vaccinated. And those are some of the grounds for him to remove some of his closest people and try to kind of isolate himself from his. Saw all those long tables, and so there are, but I mean, we have no evidence to, we can just speculate on that. However, what we do know is that the Russian army had not planned on the events happening the way they did. They didn't plan to reach such an unprecedented level of resistance from the Ukrainian armed forces. And given that this is the 5th day and that they had not been able to capture a single largest Ukrainian city, we know that Berdyansk, a port on the Azov Sea, is right now also under fire. We know that there are air raid sirens all over Ukraine from the east to the west, but we also know that the Russian army has sustained tremendous human toll in this. And we also see Ukrainians massively joining the armed forces, massively joining the territorial defense units. And we also see Ukraine winning the war in the information spectrum, if you will, because it's really interesting to see how the tables have turned for Ukraine's president and overall for the armed forces in terms of the public information that gets out there.
Dr. Olga Boychuk, really appreciate your insights this morning. Thank you so much for joining us on News Breakfast.
Thank you.
President Vladimir Putin has issued an order to his top military chief to put all of Russia's defence forces, which includes nuclear arms, on high alert for combat. The move signals an escalation of Russia's response, which is likely to heighten fears of a nuclear war. President Putin says the move is fuelled by the actions of the West. These are the key developments this morning. Ukraine has agreed to meet a Russian delegation for talks without any preconditions. The delegations will happen tomorrow on the Ukraine-Belarus border. Late yesterday, there was a battle on the streets of Ukraine's second city, Kharkiv, after Russian troops entered, but Ukraine says it remains in control of the city. In the most recent development, the European Union has announced it will shut its airspace to all Russian planes and will ban state-owned media.
This will apply to any plane, owned, chartered or otherwise controlled by a Russian legal or natural person. So let me be very clear. Our airspace will be closed to every Russian plane, and that includes the private jets of oligarchs too.
And these are live pictures from Kiev, where it's just past 9 p.m. The city is under a strict curfew, and Ukrainians who remain are preparing to fight.
Last Saturday, Vladimir Putin held nuclear drills for all the world to see. This Sunday, he put them on high alert.
Dear colleagues, you can see that Western countries are not only taking unfriendly economic actions against our country, I mean the illegal sanctions that everyone knows about, but also the top officials of leading NATO countries are allowing themselves to make aggressive statements with regards to our country. That's why I'm ordering the Defence Minister and the Chief of General Staff to put deterrence forces on high combat alert.
Even his defence minister looks concerned.
He's put his nuclear forces on high alert. What does that mean, and how worried should we be?
Alerting could mean an increase in general force readiness. It could mean forces from Russia's 12 GUMU, which are in charge of Russia's nuclear arsenal, pulling nuclear warheads out of central storage, bringing them to places where means of delivery are stored, things like strategic bombers, part of Russia's long-range aviation. It could mean a higher alert level of Russia's strategic bomber force. It could mean more strategic ballistic missile submarines being put out to sea, right? Or it could be a larger number of strategic bomber patrols or things of sort of over-signaling of that nature.
Russian troops have pushed into Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv. But their advance does not appear to be the slam-dunk straight-to-Kiev invasion that they'd hoped for. But they have deployed just a fraction of the military power they have on standby, so that could all change. Sky News has confirmed the presence of thermobaric rockets in southern Ukraine, an especially nasty weapon that the Russians are known to have, which sucks in oxygen to create a massive blast. Videos like this of a Ukrainian soldier swearing he'll never speak Russian again once this war is done, testament to the fact that Ukraine's military will not go down without a fight. Ukraine agreed today to send a delegation for talks with the Russians at a site near Chernobyl on the border between Ukraine and Belarus, but they remained defiant.
If the order of President Putin to put on high alert his nuclear weapons is a direct threat to use these nuclear weapons against Ukraine, then I have a very simple message. It will be a catastrophe for the world, but it will not break us down.
In Russia, protesters again took to the streets across the country, those who see through the propaganda and know this war is wrong, and who aren't deterred by the inevitable arrests.
Nuclear forces on high alert, Ukraine cities under attack, and this kind of a crackdown back home. It is a hard sell even to his own people that this is all in the name of Russia's defence.
They don't know why their president is doing this, and the West doesn't either, which makes planning a response to what is now a nuclear threat that much harder. Diana Magnay, Sky News, Moscow.